Hi, I'm Chris, and this is the Run Your Mind podcast, where we focus on the mindset and mental well-being side of running and fitness. Each episode brings you insights to help you build a healthy mindset with honest conversations and practical tools that you can use in your own fitness journey, giving you what you need to work on your mind, not just your mileage.
I think trying to find perspective on whatever you're doing is a really good technique to help you manage stresses or anything that's going on in your life.
Yeah. Today I'm joined by Nick Denby, and we'll be talking about stress. Nick will be sharing about how his perception towards stress has changed through experience and age, how he manages to switch off to avoid burnout, advice for those feeling uncertain about starting something new, and how you can utilize stress in certain situations to your advantage. So let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Run Your Mind podcast. Today I'm joined by Nick. Welcome.
Thanks, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. For people tuning in who maybe aren't familiar with who you are, do you mind giving them a bit of a brief overview of you and your background?
Yeah, so my name's Nick Denby. I live actually just down the road. I own a gym also that's just down the road in Vauxhall called Sleven Fitness.
Yep.
It's a functional fitness CrossFit gym. Also started a company a little over a year ago called GymSync, which is a inter-gym erg racing competition.
Nice. You've mentioned there, obviously, your life and your business is around fitness now.
Yeah.
But what got you into fitness in the first place?
Well,
Where did it start from?
it's funny. I think we all did sport when we were kids. I was massively into football. So I actually grew up in Spain.
Yeah.
So football was a massive sport in Spain, and just did that. And then went to university in the United States and played football there as well. But then it's interesting, once you finish university, I think a lot of people find this as well, is they leave university, they've been doing team sports their whole life, and then suddenly they're presented with this commercial gym vibe of, now you're doing these like bicep curls on machines and don't know quite what you're doing from a athletic standpoint. And I was really a little bit lost until I found CrossFit back in like 2009. And then I really found that true love of sport again with like athleticism, improving yourself, that team sport aspect, the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And that really kind of reignited my passion for fitness. I was working in finance at the time.
Yeah.
And gave that all up in 2016 to pursue my passion in creating a lifestyle and a business around functional fitness, CrossFit, all that sort of stuff.
Great. And what was just on that point then, was there a pivotal moment when you were like, I want to take more control here or have my own thing and do this versus doing it in another space?
Yeah, I think, I was early 30s at that point. I'd been working in a corporate job for about 7-8 years.
Yep.
Really didn't have much direction with where my life was going. I had a good salary, went on nice holidays, but was just kind of doing the thing that everyone does. And I wanted to kind of live Monday through Friday, not just kind of live for the weekend.
Yeah.
So really thought, well, I'm going to give this all up, give a shot at opening my own gym. And we opened Sleven in 2018. So it took me a couple of years. I had to get some coaching hours under my belt, PT, all that sort of thing. But basically create a life that I wanted to look forward to, waking up every morning and thinking, oh, I can't wait to go, pursue my passion, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of leads nicely into the topic for today around stress.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, and I know we've spoken about it already, going off and doing your own thing, it's great to follow your passion. But stress is something that can come with not just something like that, but anything really. And I think with this aspect around it, I think we often look at stress and can think it's this purely negative thing, or often just label ourselves as stress, but often not delve into like what's causing that stress or how we're managing it or how we're proactively avoiding it. So that's what, when we were talking about topics today, you mentioned maybe would be a good thing to sort of focus on.
Yeah.
Was there anything else in particular that resonated with you around that topic?
Yeah, I think with stress, if we take a kind of metaphor of the gym and think about like progressive overload, I think you can kind of apply that to anything that you're doing outside the gym. So what's your tolerance to stress?
Yeah.
And I think some people have a higher tolerance to stress, some people have a lower tolerance to stress, and it's all about kind of managing it and figuring out, okay, is this something they should really be getting stressed about, etc. And I think until you go through a really tough time, and unfortunately, people have to go through tough times to kind of come out of them and be more resilient, learn from things. But I feel like a lot of the modern day stresses per se aren't necessarily things that, we as a human race struggle with 50, 100 years ago. I mean, you're talking about wars and,
social media.
Yeah, where, people getting stressed about posting something on social media. And I think it's taking that perspective. And I feel like my perspective on life changed quite a lot after opening a business.
Yeah.
Where I had my whole life savings on the line, people's jobs on the line, whole community that I built. There's been points in this process where I'm thinking, is it worth doing this? Are we going to be able to keep going?
Yeah.
And, that stress of letting other people down or people losing their jobs, it's kind of a lot more real than, I get stressed about posting a picture. I wonder what people are going to think.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. Well, let me get into some of the questions that I've got for you today.
Yeah.
I suppose you kind of addressed the first part there, what's your perception towards stress, but how has that changed and evolved over the years? Let's say I met you 10, 15 years ago. Would there be any difference in how you perceive or respond to stress?
I think I'm a lot more aware of it. I think obviously there's a lot more talk around mental health and stress and all these topics now. Obviously you're having a podcast about this. So probably back in the day, I'd just be like, get on with it. I've always been of that mindset, people have a much worse situation. People, are living much worse lives out there. So always try to put my life into perspective.
Yeah.
But I think something that's really changed with my life is a couple years ago when we were building the gym, the new site that we built in 2023, we opened. My business partner had cancer at the time, didn't know what was going to happen. He's okay now. Had to fire a project manager. We were weeks away from probably going bust.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure if we'd get the new gym off up and running. And that kind of period in my life where everything was going wrong was the most stressful period of my life. But it kind of taught me a lot of valuable lessons. I think obviously there's extreme cases, but 99% of things are solvable.
Yeah.
It's just about finding the solution and staying calm and trying to find someone that can help you, or reaching out to more people, or just I think we can take it upon ourselves, being organized and figuring things out. So I say this to a lot of my team now at the gym is, I'm really sorry, Nick, I've just made this mistake. For them it's a really big fuck up, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not the end of the world. We can fix that. Next time, let's not do this. Put a process in place to make sure that doesn't happen again. But you didn't mean to do it, and we can find a solution to this pretty easily. So I think when you kind of have that little bit more of a perspective on life, I think then makes it easier to deal with things like stress.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point you mentioned about being able to identify rather than, because not every stress is the same, even though your body might feel stressed, is actually the thing causing it. I think it's so helpful to build the habit, I suppose, of breaking down what is, first of all, controllable and uncontrollable stress, and then what can you do about it, or whether it's something you have to accept it, or changing the way you think about it. Because I think a lot of the time people waste so much time and energy on something we can't do anything about. And I've told myself this for years now, which has always helped me, the sooner you accept a wall is the wall, the less time and energy you spend trying to push it over.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't mean you're not frustrated by it. It might not be ideal, you might be angry about it, but the more you dwell on something, the more energy you just spend and waste around that. And a really simple exercise I find sometimes with a situation is just writing down, if I'm overthinking something, and drawing 2 columns and going, what can I control on one side and what can't I control?
Yeah.
And just going, right, okay, with the controllables, what's something I can do right now? Make it tangible, turn it from a feeling into an action.
I think, exactly, to-do lists are the best thing, I think, to manage your stress.
Yeah.
Because you're I've got 1,000 things to do. I'm going to block out my morning. I'm just going to attack them.
Yeah.
I promise you by noon, you'll feel so much better because all these things that have been playing in the back of your mind, you've actually attacked them. And sometimes, you know, we get stressed out about stuff and then we have this anxiety about starting.
Yeah.
I promise you, just get that first word on paper or whatever it is, just start doing it. And then, like, honestly, every time I do to-do lists and I get through them, I feel so accomplished, so happy.
Yeah.
Like you get on, you know, I don't know if you found the same.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I heard this analogy the other day. I really liked it. This guy was saying on a video, you know, if he asked you like what's 4 times 4, you'd go 16. If you asked like 8 times 10, you'd say 80. But if you were like 24,160 times 95, you'd write it down.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, if you're having to write these complex problems down to solve them, why aren't we writing down our day?
Yeah.
Right? When you're trying to deal with something that's so much bigger than that. Because every time you write down a math problem, it might look very complicated at the start, but you simplify it.
Yeah.
And to exactly that point is, I think when you write things down, you grab that perspective as well, and you avoid sort of feeling helpless or hopeless
Yeah.
in the situation too.
I can actually see it with my team. So I've got quite a few new members on my team and quite young.
Yeah.
And I think our business is the way it's kind of set up. It's almost like a startup.
Yeah.
So we've got processes for things, but sometimes there's nothing written on how you do something.
Yeah.
And I can see they're getting caught up in like that, getting stuck in getting started.
Yeah.
And I think with any sort of new businesses, and you've just got to, even if it's wrong, just do something.
Yeah.
And then you can assess, improve, whatever. But surely it's better to do something rather than nothing.
Yeah.
And trying to let my team know this sort of stuff as well is I'd rather you make mistakes than do nothing at all.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you've touched on there, like you'd rather people do something in your team and make the mistake and learn from it. What advice would you have for people listening to this that maybe are either, you know, whether it's their fitness journey, whether it's a race, or maybe even thinking about starting their own thing, and they're plagued by maybe that fear of failure or what ifs kind of thing that can surround this?
I know it's a bit old school, but you know, put your big boy pants on, put your woman panties on, and you just got to face the fear, you know, and like, it's only up to you. And I think like back to what you said, where you've got controllable factors, you've got uncontrollable factors. Anything that's controllable to you, you just gotta talk to yourself and be tough to yourself as well. I think, you know, we're always told about being kind and all that sort of thing, but I think like in the same vein, you got to be quite stern with yourself. You know, like, oh, I don't fancy doing my training session today. Well, you got to be firm with yourself,
yeah.
right? But then you got to be like, well, where do I want to go? What do I want to do with this? It's the same thing with life business, right? So I've got so many things on my mind. I'm just gonna sit here rather than actually like attack these issues or attack your to-do list or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I really think, you know, just being really tough with yourself and just put your emotions to the side sometimes and say, I have to do this, you know? And I don't know if that's good advice or bad advice, but it's just kind of what I have to, you know, struggle with and what we all struggle with. Everyone has the same issues, right? And you just have to get on with it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the point you made there about reminding yourself of why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because then it does become more meaningful. I think a lot of people rely on motivation because they're maybe not as clear on what they're wanting to achieve or haven't built the habits or discipline around it and just expecting to feel a certain way. But it's reminding yourself you don't need to feel a certain way to still do something.
Exactly.
And often by doing the thing, you'll feel the thing you think you're missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think with that, for sure, is being, as you say, it's not, you want to be kind and you want to be supportive, but there is a balance. You don't want to let yourself off all the time. And if you are wanting to change something and do something that really helped me when I quit my job a few years ago and have used this ever since is asking myself, what's the impact of not doing this?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the time people just focus on what's the problem. If I do this, here's everything that go wrong, but it's going, if I don't do this, what could happen? Like, will I start resenting myself? Will I start feeling a certain way? Will this have a detrimental impact on other areas of my life? Because then that allows me to cause more action to want to do something.
Yeah.
So my next question for you, and I'll, rather than just read what's written down, but frame it as in, I think when you have something you're passionate about when you're building something, or maybe you're training for a race or working towards something, it's very easy to want to put more time into it and not be able to switch off and not be able to take that rest. So how do you balance that? Like, obviously now building that business, starting GymSync and other pieces, how do you switch off? How do you recharge?
Well, I think, there's a lot of things going on now. I think there's, in the kind of recovery world, your hot, cold recovery, your hot saunas and your cold plunges, which I've been dabbling in a little bit.
Yeah.
Found that that's been really helpful, but also kind of from a social sense. So going with friends and then just kind of unwinding, getting out of the gym and making it kind of like a social. I went with 3 friends the other day in Canary Wharf and a new one that opened, and it was just a really nice kind of environment and came out super refreshed. Monday nights now, I've been going with my friend Laura Hoggins.
Yep.
And we've been doing a sound bath. And I found that's been really helpful in just kind of, it's a really weird feeling that where your consciousness, you almost feel like you're having an out-of-body experience.
Right.
So you're kind of out of your body, like kind of looking in and just kind of giving you that perspective that I was kind of talking about where, okay, like we internalize all these stresses and all these anxieties and all these things that I got to do, but then with these sound baths, for some reason, I just kind of feel like I'm having this out-of-body experience and just get a lot more perspective on things.
Yeah.
Feel like I come out just a lot more relaxed, clear of mind, using breath work. I'm starting to do that as well, and yeah, I think, I'm, all my staff and my friends at the gym will say is I'm really stiff and tight.
Yeah.
So I find like, breathing techniques and stuff and just thinking about these techniques to really kind of loosen myself out. And then suddenly I find, oh wow, my shoulders are really kind of pushed up. And if I just relax a little bit, I'm not like biting down on my jaw as much. And so many different things now that there's a lot more literature on it. And, I guess I was just a bit more of a lad back in the day and think it would be too woo to do like breath work, too woo-woo. But it's really, really helps with just like regulating that nervous system and just like bringing you a little bit like your heart rate down and just your stresses and stuff. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of people find with switching off, they think like resting is doing nothing.
Yeah.
But it's doing, there's often things people are already doing, but just being more intentional with what's this doing it for, like spending time with your friends, going doing those things, you can combine things together. And I think it's often when people make rest, they think sitting on the sofa that it's boring and they think, I want to be active, I want those endorphins. And I think it's just being more conscious of like how you find that active rest and things you can do where you're still socializing, you're still doing something and bringing more intention to it as well.
Yeah, I think like switching off is so important, and I've made a concerted effort the last year and a half to actually just separate myself a little bit from the gym. So I have a membership at Third Space, so I can go to the sauna and unwind and be around different people. I know it's still fitness, but it's, I'm not working out in my own gym and then see somebody doing something I don't like and that stresses me out and ruins my workout. So, things like that, like all my friends, my staff, everyone's at Sleven. So trying to, expand my networks a little bit and try to go outside the network so I can remove myself, and then you can have that top-down view and it's not all consuming like all the time. I have to do this, I have to do that. And I think trying to find perspective on whatever you're doing is a really good technique to help you manage stresses or anything that's going on in your life.
Yeah, I think just having, like you say, like different friendship groups as well, people that maybe you'll spend time with where you won't talk about work or you won't talk about fitness or CrossFit or High Rocks or running is a nice balance. I definitely benefit from that, where it's not saying people aren't interested in it, but it's very easy to talk about it all the time and that's still taking energy. It's not saying you don't enjoy it, but they say the phrase, if you love what you do, never work a day in your life, but you'll never also have a day off.
No.
So it's good to find those spaces where you can do that.
Yeah, imagine like, say you go on holiday to Greece and, the pace of life is so different, no one gives a shit about what you're doing in London, who you are, what's going on. Yeah. And that gives you such a good perspective and be like, wow, I get so worked up about this event that's coming up, but it's just an event, or it's just, something that's going on in my life or whatever it is. And I think, always trying to get perspective on things and trying to just slow things down, take yourself out of that situation and you'll realize that, oh, I can manage the stress, I can manage the situation.
Yeah. What's one way you determine whether something is healthy stress, like benefiting you, causing you to do something productive, or unhealthy?
Well, that's a good question. I think for me, it's always the 2-column thing that you're talking about, which is what's controllable, what isn't.
Yeah.
And I always try to focus on what's controllable.
Yeah.
Anything that's uncontrollable, I think you try not to worry too much about, but you've got to kind of set it aside. And, there are just going to be horrible situations in your life that you do have to manage, and you do probably want to talk about and everything. But if you kind of focus on the things that you can control, that's going to feel like you have a lot more control of your life. And I always want to feel like I am in control, and not that. So if you don't have your controllables sorted, and then you got the uncontrollables there, everything can just fall apart quite quickly, can't it?
Yeah, and I think it's just asking the question sometimes, like, how is this stress benefiting me? Not always seeing stress as a negative thing, and going, actually, it might be making me more proactive in a situation, or it might be making me more self-aware or more conscious of others, and reflecting on that after a situation. Maybe you felt stressed up towards it and gone, actually, do you know what? And it's not trying to create some toxic positivity around stress, but recognizing that it's caused some benefits as well, because then you can normalize that feeling. Next time, maybe you start to feel that and not automatically assume this is a negative experience.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to kind of my concept before about progressive overload.
Yeah.
It's, the more stresses and the more experience you have in life, the more you realize that there are small things that shouldn't be bothering you that maybe when you're 18 or 15. You think about when you're a kid, right? You're like, somebody takes your candy away, you start screaming like it's the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, as we grow older, that becomes a lot more, nuanced. But, the things that bothered you 10 years ago probably don't bother you now, right?
Yeah, I think it is that perspective. And it's also reminding yourself of the things you've already faced, isn't it? Where when you have faced stressful situations, the situation might be different, but how you felt about it is the actual physical feeling is the same. And it's looking for clues in the past ways you've dealt with stress, how to deal with the future ones.
Yeah, 100%. And, you can even then, take this to other concepts as well, where, just think about people who have kids. I don't have kids. Do you have kids?
No.
So, then suddenly somebody else's life is in your hands. I'm pretty sure most of your internal troubles like evaporate, right? Because you're like, well, I've got to make sure, my son or my daughter is well fed and taken care of and they're great. And so I think, that probably fatherhood would give me another perspective on life if that ever happens.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to get into the quick fire questions now.
Okay.
Just get these out of my pocket. So keep them as short as you want, or you can expand if you like, but okay. First one. What's the most useful thing you've learned from someone to help you manage your stress?
To-do list, for sure.
Okay. A song that helps me deal with or process my stress is?
Country music all day, every day.
Okay. Like it. Something I used to get stressed about, but hardly do anymore is?
Probably around eating. I used to be like, oh, I'm so hungry, I gotta eat,
Yeah.
But really, really tiny stress that.
A quote or mantra I remind myself of when feeling stressed?
Everything is solvable.
Everything is solvable. And then final question, and I've really screwed this up with the order. What would you say, if you were to get someone to write down a little post-it note of how to look at or deal with stress, what would it say?
Yeah, everything is solvable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Nick, let me just get rid of this questions. Thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to find out more about Nick, you'll find all the handles and other bits in the comments below, and let us know if there's any questions or takeaways from this episode. But Nick, thank you so much for joining me.
Awesome.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Stay mindful. Catch you soon.
It's been great. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.